Ever since I brought this horse home, I've been curious as to what breed he is. When I first got him, he was very underweight. I found him at a little tiny horse auction like this one. I had always assumed he was a thoroughbred because I do see quite a few of those when I go to horse sales. I found him at an auction far away from any racetrack though. He needed to gain a lot of weight, so I spent the good part of the next 2 years rehabbing him from his emaciated state. I really didn't spend too much time trying to figure out what breed of horse he was because I was initially worried that he might not make it through the refeeding process. But with a lot of time and good feed, he started feeling so much better. Because he started off so skinny, I called him Skeletor, and his name has just stuck. As he started gaining muscle mass, he also started to grow quite tall. And once he figured out how to use his legs, he had some pretty spectacular movement. I did do a video on his initial rehab, and you can check that out with the link in the description below. Now that he is happy and healthy and ready to start his training, I thought it would be really fun if I sent his DNA in to get it tested. I have no information about his breeding, and I was not able to get in touch with his original owners. The way this DNA test works, it's pretty neat. I'm gonna break it down for you guys so you know exactly what they're testing for. You may remember from high school biology that DNA is made up of 4 different bases, the A's, T's, C's, and G's. Each animal has a different combination of these 4 bases, which makes up their DNA. To test for ancestry, this DNA is broken down into little chunks and compared against DNA that they already have. By comparing the chunks of DNA that Skeletor has to the historical DNA data that they have collected over numerous years, they can guess his lineage. I will receive a genotype report back from this test, which is basically the little chunks of DNA that they're comparing to the ancestral DNA of 50 of the most common breeds of horses in the United States. From this comparison, they'll deduce the top 3 breeds that he has the most in common with. This is a chart that's on their website. It shows all of the breeds. I've always thought that Skeletor was pretty heavily thoroughbred. Maybe he has a little bit of standard bred in there, and of course quarter horse, because that's probably what he's most likely to test as. This test is not very expensive. It's like $50, so I figured I'd just go ahead and get some DNA from him and test it so we can find out for sure. I've been patiently waiting to start him under saddle, and every time I think about swinging a leg over him, he seems to grow again. He had a little bit of trouble developing his top line over the summer, so he's been turned out with Mort, who is another rehab horse that I have in. This is actually my isolation pen. It's far away from all my other horses. It has given me a chance to feed him some extra food to help him grow big and strong. To get DNA for a test for a horse, all you have to do is pull their hair out. The DNA comes from the little piece of follicle that comes out with the hair. Sorry, buddy. Some horses really don't like it, but Skeletor didn't mind too much. Over the last week or 2, I've noticed that he's really starting to fill out. His spine isn't sticking out anymore. Compared to how he looked when I first got him, he is doing so much better. His booty has really plumped up, and he did have a spot on his ribs where he was bit and there was some muscle damage. You can see it right there. And that has taken a while to fill in, but I think it's finally gone. His buddy Mort is a registered quarter horse. When I got him, he was actually smaller than Mort. Now he's much taller than him. I'm hoping the DNA test will give me some insight into what discipline he may excel at. I filled out all the paperwork and got ready to send the hair in the mail to Texas A&M. According to their website, it can take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to get the results back. I haven't measured this guy in a while, so I'm gonna go ahead and see how much he's grown since the last time. When I bought him, he was just barely 14 hands. I really didn't think he was gonna get as big as he's gotten. This ground is not ideal to be measuring on him. It's dirt and there's a bunch of little holes in it. This is something that horses can be nervous about, but Skeletor doesn't really get upset about anything. He's a pretty brave horse, so I just measured him a couple times until he got annoyed with me. And it looks like he's sitting right at 15 hands. I have trained a lot of thoroughbreds and none of them have ever been as friendly as this guy is. He's got a lot of attributes that thoroughbreds have. One thing that I noticed is he does have a lot more bone than a typical thoroughbred, and he has pretty nice feet. He still looks a bit gangly to me. I think he's gonna grow a bit more. He'll probably finish at 16+ hands. Most of the horses that I have right now are 14 hands, so he kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. He is the kind of horse that looks different from day to day. This is a few days later. I actually think I'm going to get the test back today, so I'm going to give you guys one more look at him. What do you think? Thoroughbred, quarter horse? I do think he's something with a little bit more bone than a thoroughbred. Being in Montana, it's pretty likely that he is a appendix quarter horse, which is half thoroughbred, half quarter horse. The wait is finally over. I got the test results in an email today, so I'm going to print them out and show you guys what he came back as. This DNA test highlights the 3 breeds that he has the most in common with. I'll give you guys a few more seconds to guess what his top breed was. I had always just assumed it was thoroughbred, but I was pleasantly surprised when I looked at his paperwork and the #1 breed was the Hanoverian. The Hanoverian is a warm blood breed that started in Germany. They are known to be elegant, strong, and robust. They are bred to be willing and trainable with a strong back, powerful body, athletic movement, and strong limbs. They were originally bred to be cart horses and to be used in cavalry, but today they excel at show jumping. Their willingness and trainability lets them excel at dressage as well. Hanoverians are extremely versatile, so they also excel at eventing. Given Skeletor's great personality, I can totally see that. The second breed that most lined up with his ancestral DNA ended up being the Arabian. You may be thinking that there is no way that Skeletor is related to this horse. Modern day Arabians have a very dished face, petite ears, and a very high tail set, but in the 1700s they looked a lot different. Around this time, a lot of Arabians were being imported to Europe as gifts. Any of my horse history buffs out there will know that all modern day thoroughbreds can be traced back to 3 Arabians. Bayerli Turk, who was imported in 1683, the Darley Arabian, who was imported in 1703, and the Godolphin Arabian, who was imported in 1730. It was very common practice back then to add Arabian blood into the cavalry horses of the day. This created a more refined horse with more stamina and a lighter build, which eventually evolved into the sport horses we have today. The third and most likely ancestral DNA match for Skeletor ended up being not the thoroughbred, but the Trakehner. The Trakehner is another German warm blood breed that was established around the same time as the Hanoverian. Trakehners were established with more thoroughbred ancestry, so they are a little bit more spirited and refined than a Hanoverian. Looking at pictures, now that I know, it seems super obvious that he would be a warm blood and not more thoroughbredy. There are a few very small warm blood breeders in Montana, but it is unlikely that any of them would ever take one of their babies to an auction. I'm really glad I was able to give this guy a soft place to land and that he went through his rehab so well. If you're interested in seeing more updates on this guy, please like the video and subscribe so you don't miss anything in the future.